Just before I start to chat to a couple of my colleagues as well, just want to pick up on some of the themes from Zahid and Imran's introductions earlier on. Everybody, you're all very welcome to Watford Football Club this evening. It's the second year in a row where we've held an iftar at the stadium. It's actually the second one we've held this year, because just last week or the week before, we welcomed guests from a company called Nujum Sports, who we'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. So we've actually held 3 iftars now. This is our third one. So we're starting to feel like we're getting the hang of it a little bit. So hopefully you're going to enjoy the evening. And as I say, you're all very welcome. Watford Football Club, as Zahid and Imran touched upon earlier, we like to think of ourselves as the original family and community club. And those aren't just words that we say. Those are values that we try to live by and try to hold very close to us. It's not always easy with what goes on out on the pitch. We park that for a moment and won't think too much about that. But off the pitch, we work incredibly hard, and in the equality, diversity, inclusion work that I do, that Karen does, that you've heard about earlier, we're incredibly fortunate to have some fantastic local community partners, and none more so than the guys from the Watford Muslim Youth Charity, because Zahid and Imran have been real fantastic supporters of the work that we do as much as we've done things with them. So nights like tonight are brilliant, and we just like to say thank you, Zahid, thank you, Imran, thank you for your support for us and the work that we're trying to do, as well as what we're trying to do to try to improve things in our local community. So thank you. Part of what we've done in the build up to the iftar this year, and we did the same last year, so those who didn't hear last year will remember this, but a number of us club staff and trust staff have actually been fasting for 3 days as well. So forgive me if I'm a little bit not great in the speaking tonight, because I've been fasting for 3 days. But what I wanted to do is just quickly introduce a couple of my colleagues up that have been fasting with me as well. They did this last year too, and we'll just ask a couple of questions to see how they found it this year. So Carol, Laura, Sean, if you'd like to come up. So we started on Tuesday morning. Tuesday was our first morning, and Laura, I'm going to come to you first, because we've got a WhatsApp group to support each other through our fasting. And Laura was the first to post in our WhatsApp group at 4:30 on Tuesday morning with a plate of baked beans and poached eggs on toast. But Laura, those early starts in the morning, how have they been for you? How have you found those this year and last year?
So that one, the first one I did was the last one that I did. I struggled. So as Dave said, I did this last year. So having experienced it last year, I started training this year for it. So I've actually started fasting just for the morning for the last couple of weeks. So I was skipping breakfast and just having like a late lunch and a light dinner, which has really helped. So when I started this year, I thought, right, here we go, 4 o'clock. Actually, my son woke me up at 4 o'clock coming into my bedroom, which is pretty standard. So I thought, oh, I might as well go and have my breakfast. Yeah, loaded up the baked beans with the eggs, and I really didn't want to eat it, but I forced it down. And then I felt quite sick. Consequently, couldn't get back to sleep, so then was really, really tired for the whole rest of the day and just felt rubbish all day long. So I didn't get up the next morning at 4 and just starved it out. So it's yeah, it's been interesting. It's definitely the resilience. I think the kind of discipline in, you know, I've got to feed my children and there's people around me that are eating, and my tummy, forgive me if you can hear it growling with this microphone. But yeah, it's definitely the kind of reflection that you think about whilst you're fasting and why you're doing it. I think it's been something that I found really valuable. So yeah, that's a bit long-winded answer.
Fine, thanks. And Carol, just come to you as well. So Laura sort of talked about that resilience and that looking inside yourself for something to help you while you're fasting. Is that something that you experienced last year and this year as well?
Well, I've been doing the fast with my sister. She joined me last year, and she said she wants to be part of it as well, which is good. So we decided, yes, we would do it. But again, 4 o'clock, we didn't get up the first 2 nights, and we can't do it. But the third night, we thought we'd try it and get up and have something to eat. I cannot understand how people eat so much at 4 o'clock in the morning. So we tried it, but felt bad the whole day. And we said, look, if we do it again, which I didn't expect we would do it again, but we did it again this time. We slept through it and fasted the full fast all the way through, and I felt much better for it. And yeah, I don't know how you do it for so long, but but you feel different for it, and you feel, because we did it off of Lent, giving up something. Let's try the full thing and just give up for Ramadan. Yeah, it's very good, very rewarding.
Thanks, Carol. Sean, come to you last. Sean's the youngest of our group, as you can see. And for you, Sean, I know last year you may have seen this. We'll share the link round, but we put a video package together on our website of everybody did a video diary in the mornings, and Sean was a star of that, and he's been ruining that ever since, because I put him in a video that we use internally as well for staff training. But Sean, how have you found the experience of fasting again for a second year, and maybe some of the differences between this year and last year?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this year I was sort of trying to build on my experience from last year, kind of realise what I found easy and what I found more hard, maybe, I guess. So I kind of tried to pick the food that I was eating in the morning more carefully, so I'd actually be able to eat something, which actually this year I didn't really make too much of it, because I couldn't eat this in the morning either, but I just tried to get as much fluids really, because I found last year I was just obviously didn't drink enough, and I was paying for it later in the day. But yeah, I guess, and then actually on the first day, I actually just slept through my alarm, so I didn't even get the opportunity to eat all the food that I had prepared. So, but I think off the back of that, I actually didn't feel as bad as I thought I would, having not eaten in the morning. When last year I got up every morning and ate, but this year was quite interesting to not eat, and then see how I felt that way. So who knows what will happen next year.
I think that's the key thing for all of us, is we're going to go again next year, because I think the thing that it's taught us as well as a club, we're always trying to learn, we're always trying to find new experiences for ourselves as well. And I think for us and for myself, I fasted as well for 3 days. I actually found the first morning this year a little bit easier, because I was able to draw on some of the experiences from last year. But today's been tough, or we've been getting ready for today and buzzing around. But I think for us, we don't have the spirituality, the faith that's guiding us to do this. We're doing this because we want to experience it for maybe only 3 days rather than 30. But I think for us to be in a room with people that have fasted for a month, and to understand just a little bit about the spirituality, the resilience, what you find within yourselves to fast every year to get closer to your God, we have so much respect for that and so much understanding of it just from doing this short space of time. So I just want to say publicly thanks to Laura, Carol, Sean, to Carol and Maxine, everybody else from the club and the club and trust that have fasted this year. And yeah, we'll be back again next year for more. But thanks, guys.
I just wanted to chuck in a few things. I think to top it up next year, instead of just fasting for 3 days, let's do 1 hour 45-minute worship in the night, 5 extra prayers, and 2 hours of Quranic reading, and then we'll talk again.
Yeah, we'll do that with you, Imran. You can be our spiritual advisor for that. Thanks, guys. I mentioned a moment ago as well, Nujum Sports. Nujum Sports are an organisation I'd like to talk a little bit about very briefly. Again, some of you may remember this from last year when we were joined by Ebbs, who's the CEO of Nujum Sports. And Nujum are an organisation that we've worked with. They created something called the Muslim Athletes Charter a couple of years ago, and we were very honoured to be the first club to sign that charter. The Muslim Athletes Charter, the whole idea of it is that it's giving clubs like ours and sport governing bodies some advice, some backup, if you like, and a place where we can go to find out more about the Muslim faith, so that we can support our Muslim athletes, our Muslim players. We've actually got 5 players in our first team at the moment that are Muslim, and 1 player in our academy as well. So for us to be able to support them, we lean very heavily on the work that Nujum do. Delighted to be joined tonight by Taofiq Olomowewe, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Taofiq, who's a centre half for Welling United, who are a team in the non-league, and an ambassador for Nujum Sports. And Taofiq's going to come up and just say a few more words and speak about Nujum and about how his faith and how he works his football career and his faith. So Taofiq, come and say a few words. Oh yeah. Right.
So it's interesting for me to come up here because I've done a couple of workshops with Watford already, and for me it's kind of very interesting to express my faith in Islam, being a Muslim. So I grew up in East London, Hackney, played football my whole life, and fast forward, I signed a pro contract at Burnley. So I moved from inner city London, I moved up to Burnley, and it was the first time I kind of experienced being a Muslim, as in being who I am. So growing up, I've always had trials and tribulations being a black person. I always feel like in society as a black Muslim, I saw myself as a target number one. I think when you play football and you express yourself as the person you are, sometimes it's very hard to feel accepted to being the person you are. And being a Muslim, we can kind of relate sometimes. So the month of Ramadan is a special time for me because it always brought me back to center as a Muslim. It always was a time of the year where it would be a time when people not of my faith would ask me questions. Like, for example, how are you fasting and praying? How do you train and you fast? How do you get up in the morning and pray? And how do you use hours of sleep? And everyone always asks me. And I always turn around and say, I probably play my best football when I'm fasting. Coinciding this month in Ramadan, I'm a centre back. I've scored 3 goals in 4 games. So you can imagine it's a time of the year where I go to my manager, just make sure whenever it's Ramadan, I'm always starting. I'm gonna get you a good result. So I usually don't when I speak. I've gone into since playing. I do a lot of speaking, so I go into organisations. So I did a workshop at Watford currently for the under-23s and the 18s, speaking about Ramadan, what is Islam, what is the faith, trying to educate them, seeing what players was in the academy, what helped they do. With Najum, that's what we do. So in Najum, we created an environment for me. So when I was at Burnley, if I needed to pray, I would have to find a change room that no one's using and kind of like hide away and ask my manager. And it was hard for me because obviously culturally, I didn't kind of fit in as well, being an inner city London boy. I shout when I speak, apparently, and they never understood that. So something like the gym coming about now, it allows clubs to sign a Muslim charter, and with that Muslim charter, it allows them to say that they're going to provide halal food for the players, a prayer room, a prayer facility. So if you go up and down the country, we opened a lot of prayer rooms at clubs, various Premier League clubs, but also in non-league. There's a club in the Step 4, Lancing, which is Division, I think it's the 8th tier of English football. Sussex FA have opened a prayer room in their facility. So it's a multi-faith room. If anyone needs to pray before a game, they can go and use that facility. And for me, someone that could be playing in the middle of Brighton can go to Lancing and pray. And that was unheard of when I was coming through. I'm only 26 before, but I want to actually give some reminders on Ramadan. I feel like when people talk about Ramadan a lot, we talk about the food a lot. But for me, it kind of brings me back to center. It's more about your desires for me personally. I feel like as a Muslim, we can get caught up into living in a routine. We might pray and we say, okay, we pray. But in the times when we're not praying, what are we speaking about? How do we conduct ourselves throughout the day? Are we a representation of the religion of Islam? Are we a person that brings peace to other people? Because there's a lot of the time that we may fast, but then you forget to negate all the other things that comes with the fasting. I also say fasting is one of them deeds that you only do for Allah, it's for God Himself, because everyone in this room, for example, you was fasting today, but no one will know you're fasting because if you went out this room and drank a cup of water, I would never know. It's only between you and God, this relationship, because the fast isn't for you, it's for Allah. So it's one of the only deeds that when you do it, it's a sincere devotion to say that I am not doing this, and it's not because of me, it's for you. And when you're referring to Allah, and for me, that closeness and that relationship, and that knowing that I'm sacrificing so much and all my desires and all my wants and all my nafs just for Allah's purpose, just for God just for God's happiness and blessings upon me is probably one of the most beautiful things that I've ever experienced in my life. And it's probably one of the reasons why Islam fits so well with me as a being, because like I said, growing up in the city, Hackney, London, I was saying I was grew up a lot around a lot of Caribbeans, I was grew up around a lot of culture, I was grew up around a lot of influence. And it was only moving to Manchester for the first time where I lived in my own apartment and mum and dad are not telling me to pray no more. I got to do this by myself. I found my feet. And going on to just my final point is that I think throughout life you kind of meet people and they can change your perspective on life. And I hope a conversation of just in the gym or meeting like the brothers I've met today at the Watford Muslim Youth Centre that I had no knowledge of before I came into this building, today would then allow me to have a no bow to my arrow that I can then change my life and my perspective. Because I feel like with community, with faith and community is interlinked. I see you as my brothers in Islam. I see everyone as my brothers and sisters in Islam. I see you as my people, my colleagues and my friends that I come across every single day. And I feel like as human beings, we have a debt. I think Muhammad Ali said a quote, he was like, the service you give to others is the rent that you pay for earth on earth. And I feel like it's a quote that resides with me, because if we all had that kind of mentality that what we do for others is the rent we pay to live on this earth, the world would be a better place. So I hope that's a reflection of me.
Can I just keep you there? If there are any questions from anyone in the audience for Taofiq or for the staff members who've been passing, feel free to shout them out. Especially some of the young people at the back, you may want to know something about football, maybe about the experiences. Feel free to shout it out. If you're shy, you can just come around and ask something. But I do have a question for you. Are you hungry?
I'm all right. I'll be honest. By this time of Ramadan, the fast it becomes a secondary thing. If I can last 90 minutes on a Saturday running around, I get to a point where it's easy.
It's funny because Dave was saying earlier, next year, let's time this event to be before the clock change, so that when they do the fast, they can save an hour a day. But I think it is wonderful. I remember last year, some of the reflections from the club was there was a sense of serenity and calmness, even though they may not prescribe to the Muslim faith. The concept of fasting and becoming more selfless was actually quite impactful for the people who were fasting, which is quite nice to see. But thank you so much.
No problem.